In the Greek Empire under Alexander the Great, you may remember that during that intertestamental period when Greece began to become the overlord, the empire of that Middle East, the one thing that Alexander wanted was to share his culture. And of course, in trying to share his culture with the countries that he had conquered, the best way to do that was to teach them Greek. Was that if he could give them Greek, then he could also give them with Greek all the stories and the backgrounds and the traditions and the culture of Greece. Alexander wanted to Hellenize, wanted to make those conquered countries into Greeks. And so the way in which he did that was through the use of language. And so for the first time, and to some degree the last time for many, many centuries afterwards, this whole part of the world is able to understand a single language. That yes, they may still have their own language as their first language, but in order to communicate with the state, they begin to speak Greek. Now, even though Rome now becomes the next empire, and Rome has got its own language, which is Latin, they continue to use Greek as the second language of the empire, particularly in that eastern part of the empire. And so in the eastern part, but also in the west, Greek begins to become the main language. And so you can imagine a common language means that all the stories that you have, if you can put them into Greek, are now accessible across cultural lines, across tribal lines, across ethnic divisions. Regardless of who you are, by virtue of using Greek, you are able to move your cultural perspective across. Of course, when Christianity explodes out of the Middle East, we see that all the writings of Christianity are in Greek. And so begin to actually become accessible to all. A common language won't happen again until this generation, in fact the current generation we're in, where now English has become that worldwide language. And where English is now seen as being the language, the vehicle language of communicating ideas and perspectives. In the same way, Greek, a particular form of Greek, sometimes it's called Koine Greek. Koine, which sometimes can be referred to as common Greek. Common Greek. And so the common Greek is not quite the classical Greek of Greece, but it is a common Greek. A Greek with maybe fewer of the rules, maybe even fewer of the words that the classical Greek would have. But this common Greek, this Koine Greek, becomes the language of all the peoples, across all the boundaries which would normally have separated people from each other. As I've said before, it doesn't take long for the situation in the Middle East and Europe to change. And as it changes, so Greek falls out of favor, and no longer is it the main language of everyone. But by that stage already, language the Christianity has taken hold, and then can be continued within each of these tribal groups. We can't stress enough the importance of language and the importance of how important it was that Greek became that language of the empire. And as the language of the empire, the Bible and the New Testament being written in Greek gave it accessibility into all the world, more than any had been before.